The Great Caribbean Parliamentarians meeting for peace kicked off in Venezuela, condemning the warmongering intentions of the United States in the region. During the closing ceremony of the first International Space Congress, China reaffirmed its commitment to advancing scientific and technological cooperation with Venezuela. And Brazil's Human Rights Minister Macaé Evaristo strongly condemned the state police massacre that killed at least 121 people in a favela in Rio de Janeiro. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos. I'm from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We'll begin with the news. We begin with the information. As we were saying at the beginning, the Great Caribbean Parliamentarians meeting for peace kicked off in Venezuela, condemning the warmongering intentions of the United States in the region. The event is aimed at rejecting the attacks by Donald Trump's administration during his stay in international waters of the Caribbean Sea since last August. The parliamentary meeting arose from the working groups of the National Council for Sovereignty and Peace in its different chapters. With this joint declaration for peace, Caribbean parliamentarians seek to reinforce the position that dialogue and respect for sovereignty are the only ways to achieve stability and security in the Caribbean. The final declaration of the meeting will urge Washington to halt its plans for intervention and to respect the self-determination of the peoples of the region.
Actuales momentos se cierne.
At present, Venezuela is undoubtedly under threat.
Con la intención aviesa de promover un cambio
with the malicious intention of promoting a regime change that would allow the government of the United States of America and the imperial hegemony to take control of natural resources that belong solely to the people of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela. That is the crux of the matter. That is the indisputable truth.
Incontrovertible.
In this context, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister Iván Gil warned of the negative consequences that a U.S. military intervention would have for the countries of the region.
The destabilization of this area, which we declared a zone of peace in 2014, is perhaps the first of the consequences we could face if the United States or this government in the United States were to irresponsibly decide on military intervention. And it would not be Venezuela that would pay the most regrettable consequences of such an intervention. We are talking about neighboring countries: Colombia, the Caribbean, Brazil, Guyana itself, Trinidad and Tobago, whose prime minister threatens us and has taken a position of constant war against Venezuela, even against her own people, would suffer the most tragic consequences of any intervention.
Meanwhile, in the Venezuelan capital, hundreds of citizens took to the streets to protest against the actions of the U.S. empire, which threatened the sovereignty and peace of the nation. Our correspondent Andrea Romero with the details.
En un ambiente de alegría y tranquilidad, caraqueños.
In an atmosphere of joy and tranquility, the people of Caracas showed that in the face of the false narratives used by the United States to attack Venezuela, the people here remain united and ready to defend their territory.
In the face of the threats and false flag operations they want to impose here, where they are looking for an incident and creating conditions based on what they have exposed in a narrative, as if this were a narco state. We are on alert. We are on alert because simply the Venezuelan people are united in the face of this threat. It is a threat that for us is a criminal matter, and that without a doubt is a criminal threat.
Los presentes asistieron a la movilización.
Those present attended the demonstration motivated by the country's historical legacy of defending peace and sovereignty.
Today we are marching here for peace in Venezuela, for peace in Latin America, for peace in the world, for peace in our country, Venezuela, just as our liberator Simon Bolivar fought to free Latin Americans from the slavery imposed on them by the Spaniards. Today we fight for our peace and our freedom.
Hoy luchamos por nuestra paz y por nuestra libertad.
Estamos unidos porque somos un pueblo.
We are united because we are a people who support our country, and we feel united because we are a people of liberators.
Porque somos un pueblo de libertadores.
Ciudadanos expresaron su deseo de evitar
Citizens expressed their desire to avoid war and show those outside the country who want to promote conflict that Venezuela remains firm.
I am here because I do not want war. I want peace, and to tell Carla that she is a toady of the empire, that there is a people here who will go out to defend their country because we are patriots at heart.
con unidad y determinación el
With
pueblo
unity and determination, the Venezuelan people reaffirm their rejection of foreign interference and their commitment to preserving peace and national sovereignty.
Desde Caracas, en la Cámara de Marcos da Silva para Telesur, Andrea Romero.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum also demanded respect for the country's sovereignty after recent attacks by U.S. military forces against 4 boats allegedly transporting drugs, which left at least 14 people dead. Antonio Aranda, our correspondent in the country, has the details in the following report.
Claudia Sheinbaum demandó a Estados Unidos
Claudia Sheinbaum demanded that the United States maintain the cooperation agreement to prevent further attacks on vessels such as the recent one against 4 boats, allegedly transporting drugs across the Mexican Pacific.
Today, the Secretary of the Navy is meeting with a counterpart from the Coast Guard, and then we are also looking to have a meeting with South Command, which is responsible for these activities. Our objective is to continue developing the plan we have been working on, which has to do with information.
La mandataria detalló que Estados Unidos
The
puede
president explained that the United States can provide information to Mexico to detention suspicious vessels near its coastal strip without the need to kill people.
matar personas.
And these meetings are being sought so that in the case of the geographical location that has to do with Mexico, the operations that we were previously doing, which is the capture of these vessels, can continue.
Respecto al posible sobreviviente del ataque que
Regarding the possible survivor of the attack that left 14 people dead, he indicated that the international protocol for the care of shipwrecked people is being followed.
From the Marina, the Admiral explained to us today, it has to remain for 96 hours, as required by international rules when searching for a castaway, and it is doing so in accordance with international law.
los ataques de Estados Unidos a embarcaciones que
United States attacks on vessels allegedly transporting drugs from the Caribbean and the Pacific have resulted in 61 killings in the last 2 months.
una verdadera ofensiva militar.
A real military offensive under the guise of the anti-drug fight in the region that has a political background, says this expert.
Within the logic of expansion and consolidation of domination processes that Washington has traditionally had for the Latin American region, the context of what is currently happening in the Caribbean is mainly aimed at harassing Venezuela in order to provoke a regime change.
Estados Unidos viola los derechos humanos con
The United States violates human rights with these attacks on boats and once again ignores its own responsibility in drug trafficking, says the expert.
These are clearly extrajudicial executions. The United States has not presented any evidence other than these images. Beyond direct murder, it would have to do much more within its borders, and in the context of its institutionality, and also in the context of its financial organizations, to identify precisely what is at the heart of drug consumption and drug trafficking within its borders.
Para los especialistas, las acciones de Estados Unidos
For
tienen,
experts, the actions of the United States have, among other objectives, the erosion of the strongest bloc of the Latin American left, under the pretext of combating drug trafficking.
Antonio Aranda, Telesur, Ciudad de México.
Now we have a short break coming up, but first, remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. We continue with more information. During the closing ceremony of the first International Space Congress, China reaffirmed its commitment to advancing scientific and technological cooperation with Venezuela. The Chinese representative Cui Hufu stated that Venezuela plays a key role in global space initiatives. Cui Hufu also highlighted the value and significance of Antonio José de Sucre satellite built in Beijing and launched in 2017 to enhance planning, disaster management, and security in Venezuela. In this scenario, Beijing and Caracas reaffirmed their commitment to strengthening their scientific and technological ties.
Con el apoyo del presidente hemos trabajado en la creación.
With the support of the president, we have developed the high-quality Sucre satellite, and with his continued backing, we will be able to maintain this scientific cooperation between China and Venezuela. I hope to continue as project manager when we build our future satellite. In this collaboration between Venezuela and China, Venezuela will play a significant role on the global stage.
Muy importante en el escenario mundial.
In this context, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro announced the construction and launch of the nation's first mini-space satellite, New Gran Cacique Huaycaipuro, in coordination with China.
También estoy de acuerdo que nos planteemos una meta.
I also agree that we set ourselves a goal, one goal, the Military Scientific Council.
La universidad, la gran misión, la meta de construir.
La Valles, the university, the transmission, the goal of building for now a Venezuelan mini-satellite.
Sería el primer mini-satélite venezolano que lanzaríamos al espacio.
That would be the first mini-satellite that we would launch into space. All efforts approved to go in search of the first Venezuelan mini-satellite.
Venezolano. Es una idea maravillosa.
It is a wonderful idea, and from the mini we will move on to the maximum.
Más adelante pasaremos al maxi.
Brazil's Human Rights Minister Macaé Evaristo strongly condemned the state police massacre that killed at least 121 people in a favela in Rio de Janeiro. Evaristo visited on Thursday the Peña and Alemão complexes where the so-called contention operation carried out on the orders of the far-right state governor Claudio Castro took place. In this context, the government official stated that the operation was an indescribable horror and that public safety must be linked to education and health policies. Right-wing governors have supported the Rio de Janeiro operation. However, national and international human rights organizations have called for a thorough investigation to clarify the events of what is being called the most aggressive police operation in the history of the favela.
Ela é uma tragédia. Ela é horror.
It is a tragedy, it is horrific, it is abominable. People cannot have these kinds of political leaders. We have to fight organized crime with intelligence, as this country has already shown that it can be done, by confiscating drugs, confiscating money, capturing the leaders of the operations, using more intelligence.
Apreendendo dinheiro, pegando os cabeças das operações, usando mais inteligência. We
have policy proposals for this. We have a proposal for public security coordination that is very important in a country the size of Brazil. It cannot be that everyone does whatever they want, without planning. We know that things are connected. We must respect the state.
Sem planejamento. A gente sabe que as coisas elas são interligadas. Ela não diz respeito a apenas estado. Tem que ser uma articulação.
There has to be a federal coordination so that we can effectively crush organized crime, and not make our impoverished populations, our peripheral populations pay with their lives, pay for a series of rights that are denied to these communities.
Paguem com as suas vidas. Paguem por uma série de negação de...
In other news, on Wednesday, Bolivia's elected President Rodrigo Paz traveled to the United States to reestablish diplomatic relations with Washington and to seek assistance from international credit agencies to overcome the economic crisis. The center-right leader, who who will take office on November 8th, plans to hold meetings in Washington with representatives of Donald Trump's administration, as well as with executives from the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. Paz promised that his first measures would focus on resolving the shortage of foreign currency in the financial system and the domestic fuel shortage in a context where year-on-year inflation in September exceeded 23%. And U.S. President Donald Trump will limit refugee admissions to only 7,500 for fiscal year 2026. This drastic reduction represents a considerable decrease from the 125,000 admissions set by the administration of former President Joe Biden. More information on this. The decision was set out in an official resolution to be published this Friday, marking one of the lowest figures in the history of the country's refugee resettlement program. Specifically, the document issued by the president gives priority for refugee status to South African Afrikaners who are white descendants or European settlers. In this context, the International Refugee Assistance Project warned that this measure would affect more than 12,000 refugees from other countries whose applications had already been approved before the president took office. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.